At the height of the hippie movement in the early 70s, Stuart Briscoe, who had just become pastor of Elbrook Church in Brookfield, Wisconsin, persuaded a group of 100 counterculture youths to attend worship service, one of the Sundays. But some of the church leaders were not pleased. As a matter of fact, one of the church leaders actually approached the young pastor and said to him, "I want to make one thing perfectly clear to you. These young people you brought into our church have to be kept separate. We have worked hard to keep our children away from this kind of kids." Unfortunately, this separation still lingers. But it's not just about the separation of counterculture youth from the church-grown youth, but a growing separation of even the church-grown youth from the older generation in church. Now, this has become a major concern for the church. It is even more concerning in the mega churches. A sizable number of youths are becoming less engaged in church and somewhat uninterested. The result is often stagnation and decline, in the words of Bob Winsell, author of A House Divided, Bridging the Generation Gap in Your Church. But sadly, this is also impacting negatively on the church leadership pipeline. So today, I will attempt to shed some light on some of the issues setting back our churches from building bridges across generations. So to discuss this topic, I have with me Dayo Ogundipe, a lawyer by training, but a brand strategist in practice. Actually, so this is a confession, right? I was supposed to do this video alone, but earlier today, Dayo came around and we got talking. And in my usual nature, I would like to bounce, my thoughts by people around me. And so it came at a very good time. So I asked him, "What do you think? I'm developing this. This is what God is laying in my heart to talk about, and this is the direction I'm going. What do you think?" And guess what? By the time he started bringing his perspective, I said, "Look, hold on. I'm not going to do this video alone. You have to come. So let's have this conversation, because really, there are a lot of perspectives to this. And as a matter of fact, whatever we say today will not completely exhaust, the issues around this topic." All right. So you're a young person yourself, and by the way, I was really, really. You remember that story where we were together? I think we were in a salon, and then the guy who was cutting your hair now reminded you that you witnessed to him in 2011. Wow.
Yes, I mean, it was an inspirational moment for me, because I didn't expect it. Like, I didn't even remember. So it was like, "Oh, pastor," and I was like, I know it's not me. I was like, "No, that you preached to me in 2011. I was in Jam Blessing and all of that. You mentioned the name of Jam. I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "You don't remember me, but I still know you." And I was like, "Thank you very much. That because of what you taught us then." And I was like, "Oh, really? Wow, that's really long, And it's really one of those points where you get that
fulfillment.
Yes, that fulfillment. So after all these years,
the seed of the word you sow in the life of people. And by the way, you didn't just talk about, that prompted you to share some other experiences with me. Talked about a young lady that you witnessed to, and you ran into her somewhere, and she's already running a very big, thriving ministry, as it were. It's just very fascinating how God can use us if we make ourselves available. And the interesting thing is that, talking about 2011, that's like 10 years ago. You witnessed somebody 10 years ago. I can imagine how old you were, because you are still
we were really, really young then. So that time we were between 16 to 18 then.
Wow.
So it was all about whatever extra time that you have, use it to do something for God.
I remember also as a teenager, we had this group, and almost every Sunday after service, we'll hold hands together, we'll pray, and then we'll go to the street. But that energy, that drive as young people, it's so amazing. And I'm bringing it back home to the topic we have today, on generational gap and stuff. Now, you see, this generation gap is also beginning to affect well, I think it's also beginning to affect the level of impact,
Yeah.
that the young people are supposed to have in church, in the kingdom, because a lot of young people are not involved. There's a gap, a generational gap that is not even helping the body, and it's also affecting what's it called, leadership transfer. So you see a lot of churches, like I said in my intro, even the mega churches are, being affected, by this. So, but what's your take on this? How did we get here?
Okay, that's very interesting. So primarily, I think that it's a question of changing cultures. Now, the expression of that is on its basic form. There are different points of view. So you have the older generation that have experienced got to a certain level based on certain principles that they believe that has worked for them. So those principles are tried and trusted. They are not shaken. Now it seems like there's a new breed of young people that, and they tell you that, oh, that principle that you think worked for you is not actually so. This is the way we think it is. So there's that gap of, oh, are you trying to say what has worked for us is no longer valid?
Yeah.
And then they see the expression of the truth that the young people say, and a lot of times, so because of cultural nuances as well, there are certain labels and tags that we've ascribed to certain behavioral patterns, that we say, oh, so as a Christian, there's a way you should not look, there's a way you should not dress, and all of that. So it's a bit hard for the older people to separate the trusted principles, the tried principle that has worked, from the cultural infusion into their belief system. So they see this set of young people that they are saying, see, we believe the same thing, but want to express it differently.
Yeah.
So that gap is coming from that place, that they are saying, no, we are not listening. We are not going to listen to what I'm saying. Yeah, it has to be this way.
Pattern,
if it's not this way,
it's not
it.
Right.
And the young people are saying, listen, things have changed. So the way we talk, the way we interact with people has changed, which also would reflect in the way we communicate our beliefs as well, the way we express it. So you see a lot of young people trying to say, we just want you to see it from our point of view. It's not different. It's just that the form and mode of expression is different from yours. So there is that gap of, we are not ready to accept this. There's a gap of, oh, you people are backward.
So it brings us to the first thing we hear, which is connection.
Connection,
right?
Yeah.
So we are saying that there is no connection between the older generation and the younger generation.
Yeah.
And so on the one side, the older generation, the need to connect to correct, right? Whereas the younger generation that want to have a conversation with the older generation, and it appears that the older generation is not ready to have this conversation with them, must also find a way to connect, to converse.
Yeah.
So there is one, connect to correct, then there's connect to converse, right? But it's not like both parties are doing things wrongly, but the only thing is that both parties must recognize that the difference in the times and also the changing culture, the changing lifestyle, and the changing mode of expression. But the point here is that, look, there has to be a common ground. The second thing also, interestingly, that we talked about is the need for coaches.
Yeah.
So we need more of coaches than instructors. So what's the difference between a coach and an instructor?
Okay, so I mean, it's a bit similar, but the difference primarily is in the mode of execution. So an instructor primarily instructs. Basically, they tell you what to do and how to do it, which is great, which is needed. Now, a coach also is an instructor, but the difference is that, so there's an extra step to it. That is, the coach does not just tell you what to do, he is actively involved in helping you achieve the desired goal. Part of what we said earlier is that because of the massive growth of the church, and because of the fact that we have mega churches now, I think we have to be more intentional in developing the systems within churches that would enable this coaching pod.
But the coach takes responsibility, and that's one of the things that the young people are yearning for. They're yearning for people who will show empathy. They're yearning for people who are not. It doesn't appear that sometimes it looks as if we're just waiting for these young people to make mistakes, and once they make mistakes, bam, say, hey, we said it.
I said it.
You understand what I'm saying? So, but they want the people who they can be free with, they can be open, they can be vulnerable. And so we have to become more open. We have to have more mentors. We have to have people that will hold these young people by the arms. Allow them be, let them express themselves. It is only in expressing themselves that you can see them in their true color and their true beauty. And which brings us to the last point, in this conversation, building communities. But what kind of communities can we build that can nurture growth?
Okay. The first thing I think we can do primarily is to be strategic about it. And we already have a good structure, which is the cell structure. So, but the purpose of that really is to cater for spiritual growth and development, and I think that we can basically replicate that and apply it to different areas of growth that we want to achieve. So basically, you want to have a lot of you want to bring in young people that are not just involved in the self or spiritual growth, but also they can see a general turnaround in their lives and their engagement. So you basically structure that in such a way that you have younger people, so because there are levels to it. So let's say the people you're trying to reach are basically age group on level 1. So you have the older people that are on level 10. So you need someone that is in between, like a level 5, that can basically communicate the values from the older people to the younger people. Because sometimes, because of the gap in experience, in timeline and all of that, a lot of rich value is lost in communication.
But the cell system now, as it were, is still multi-generational, because what you're saying is having multi-generational cell system where you have, different layers, different generations, and then maybe there is a generation at the middle that can interpret, but to a large extent we have those. I think to add to what you're saying, beyond having a multi-generational cell system, I think we also need to look at the activities of the cells. How the cells are structured, right? How the cells are structured, because one of the things we must learn is to how to tap into the lifestyle of the young people, right? How to tap into the lifestyle. So the danger often is that sometimes when we have multi-generational cells, there is always a danger that the older generation, who most likely make up the leadership, right? Design activity programs that are that are suited to them, right?
Lifestyle.
So their own lifestyle. So we now need to begin to try to tap into the lifestyle of a younger generation and design activities, that also, are relevant and appeals to that generation. Understand what and how they want to be communicated to. Understand how they want to express themselves, right? It's very important that we actually bridge this gap, right? And it's an ongoing conversation. It's not, we just shared 3 nuggets based on our conversations, right? 3 points, but there's so much and so much that can be said. Feel free, if you have comments, if you have points you want to make around these or issues, please feel free. You can send me an email at sageugo.com. All right. So finally, I'd like to say this, that any organization that fails to engage across generations is laying a foundation for extinction. There are so many reasons why we must intentionally encourage multi-generational engagement in church. Top of it is rooted in God's word in Romans 12, where Paul the Apostle analyzes the church as a body, says that a healthy church not only recognizes different spiritual gifts as important, but also the experiences and wisdom that various generations bring to the body. So I hope we can continue to drive conversations around this, because this subject is very key, is very critical, even to the growth of the body. God bless you.